invasion 2 days ago, or is it today, or is it both?
Look, I just, I let the facts speak for themselves. You're going to see paratroopers in Kiev. You're going to see, they already have paratroopers in Odessa. Naval infantry has taken Mariupol, and the tanks are pouring in. That's, call it what you want. That's just what it is. That's the reality. He said it was a limited operation for Donbass, but he also said that they're going to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. That means two things. One, the Ukrainian military will cease to exist. There will be no Ukrainian military when this is finished. And two, the Ukrainian government's gone because it's a Nazi regime. Not because I say so, but because President Putin has labeled it as such. And, this is a Russian operation. We in the West can sit back there and shake our heads, wag our fingers. It doesn't matter. The reality is made by Russia, and that reality is transpiring on the ground right now. Afterwards, we can dissect it and criticize it, et cetera. But, right now, I just let the facts speak for themselves. And the facts are Russia is overrunning Ukraine as we speak.
Right. I mean, he said that those exact words, that he wants to denazify Ukraine. He said something along the lines of, your ancestors fought the Nazis. How dare you collaborate with them now or become neo-Nazis? I didn't get the exact translation. We haven't had a proper one yet, but yeah. So what does he mean by that? It's not just the Azov battalion. It's beyond that. It's the entire Ukrainian military, as you said. Is that what's being labeled Nazi now?
I don't want to denigrate the entire Ukrainian military. I'm sure that it's staffed by professional officers and soldiers who believe in the defense of Ukraine, but they've allowed themselves to be infiltrated by a radical right-wing nationalistic element whose loyalties are to a Ukrainian nationalist named Bandera, who fought on the side of the Nazis during World War II. Yep. They've torn down memorials to the Soviet liberators from World War II, and instead they've put up monuments celebrating Ukrainians who fought for the 12th SS Panzer Division. SS Panzer Division. Yep. I mean, it doesn't get any more Nazi than that. And so, there's two categories of Nazis in Ukraine. There are those who are actual Nazis, and there's thousands of them. And there's those who tolerate it, who are facilitators of this radical right-wing hateful ideology. And, we in the West can sit here and go, well, come on, don't overreact. It's not that big of a deal. For the Russians, it's a huge deal. 30 million dead is a big deal. Yeah. This resonates with the Russian psyche in a way that no one in the West will understand or comprehend. So while there's a temptation in the West to say, this is just Putin exaggerating, this is Putin making a mountain out of a molehill, no, it's not. It needs to be taken seriously. It should have been taken seriously. I think there's a lot of people waking up right now understanding that maybe we should have listened more carefully to what the Russian president was saying. And had we listened and taken action, this war could have been prevented. But now it's too late. The war's on, and Ukraine as we know it is never going to exist again.
Well, I mean, that SS division that you were mentioning, I know of it because they massacred a village in France, right? Oradour. A very, very powerful a poem. And of course, my grandfather fought in World War II, RAF. So that's always resonated with me. And the Russians lost much more than we did, Brits and Americans. So I agree with you. It's a much more potent thing for them. But when you say that this is all because, the West hasn't listened to Russia's demands or Russia's concerns. The big elephant in the room here is NATO expansion, right? Do you think, I'm just going to ask you very, straight up, very clearly, do you think that this could have been avoided if, Ukraine had come out and said, we're not going to join NATO, or the West had said, we're not going to accept Ukraine, and that's final?
Yes, this war would not be happening if that had happened. That creates room for a diplomatic settlement, because there's still a lot of problems between Russia and the West. But the big one, the one that was an existential threat to Russia, was Ukraine becoming a NATO member. Now, people are going to say, well, wait a minute. Even though they the open door policy, Ukraine wasn't going to become a member for 10 years. That's what Germany was saying. This isn't going to happen for at least 10 years. So why the urgency? There's membership and then there's de facto membership. Okay, right now, what was happening in Ukraine was that NATO was pouring in billions of dollars of weaponry. They were sending in hundreds and thousands of trainers who were training Ukrainian military to become a de facto proxy of NATO. I mean, Ukraine had already been a proxy of NATO. They deployed troops to Iraq. They deployed troops to Afghanistan. They were training to NATO standards.
Right.
So from a Russian perspective, it doesn't matter if you're a NATO member, you're acting as if you were a NATO member. And therefore, Russia said, stop, cease and desist. We don't tolerate it. And they made it a red line. Now, in the United States, we've become accustomed to presidents drawing red lines and then ignoring them. Well, Putin drew a red line. There's no ignoring this. He's acting on it. And like I said, it's time for the West to wake up. It doesn't mean we surrender. I mean, the last thing anybody should do right now is say we're going to give Russia everything they want, because that's not how you react after something of this magnitude. You don't, let the tiger think he can eat everybody in the room, but you don't want to go to war either. There needs to be, the West needs to establish some serious red lines like the Polish border, the Romanian border, the Baltic states, and be prepared to defend them with force if necessary. And, the West is having a major wake-up call because NATO has allowed its military capability to rot for the last 20 years. The United States has been killing goat herders and kicking down doors in Iraq. We can't fight the war that's being that's taking place right now. What the Russians are doing is just stunning. The Russians are unleashing the kind of hell that a modern combined arms military is capable of doing. NATO's got nothing that can stand up to this right now. And this is a wake-up call to NATO. If you want to take on Russia, okay, but put on your big boy pants, put the dollars down, and rebuild your military. Otherwise, it might be time for you to think about maybe we need to listen to what Russia's saying, because Russia doesn't want to take over Europe. This isn't the Soviet Union. They're not driving to the Rhine. They do want NATO, however, to withdraw to their pre-1997 borders. At least the military. They're not saying that Poland and the Baltic states can't be NATO members. What they're saying is no German forces, no American forces, no British forces, no non-Polish or Baltic state NATO forces can be in those states. Pull them back. Get rid of the anti-ballistic missile, so-called anti-ballistic missile capability in Poland and Romania. Before everybody was just yawning, oh, that's just the Russians overreaching. I don't think anybody's yawning anymore. Putin has always said to people, you don't listen to me when I speak. And he had a famous speech where he showed the Russian nuclear capabilities. He said, are you listening to me now? Well, guess what? Putin's sending a giant wake-up call saying, are you listening to me now? And hopefully the West is listening.